Hi there, welcome to this week's Video Weekend Warrior. I'm Mike Watchmaker, National Handicapper for Daily Racing Form. I'm going to talk about two of the big stake races Saturday at Fairgrounds. I'm going to talk about the feature, the $1 million Louisiana Derby. And I'm also going to talk about the New Orleans Handicap. And we have a true Weekend Warrior this week because I'm going to talk about a Sunday race, that being the Sunland Park Derby. But let's begin with the Louisiana Derby. And look, War Will is going to take a lot of beating in this race. He's going for a sweep of the major three-year-old Derby preps at Fairgrounds. He was a dominating winner of the Lecomte 2 starts back. He was a dominating winner of the Risen Star most recently. He's 3 for 3 since moving to dirt. All that said, I was left a little bit cold by his Risen Star for two reasons. Number one, he scored after chasing a pace that was completely unremarkable. The pace of Louisiana Derby was very much in line with the other realistically run route races on that card. And then after chasing that pace, he wound up with a winning buyer figure of only 92. So he had a perfect trip and only buyered 92. And that's a little bit of a concern for me, for a horse who's going to be a very short price. So I went looking for a new face in this race, and the new face I want is Sueno. Sueno comes into this off gaining second in the Southwest Stakes at Oakland Park. Every start for Sueno has been better than the one before, and the Southwest was his best yet. He was a gaining second after first showing positional speed. He was relatively close in the early stages, then was caught in traffic for much of the far turn and into upper stretch. But he was coming on late, and the Southwest really now looks like a much stronger prep than it did at the time. At the time, it looked like it was a weak prep. But third place finisher Long Range Toddy came back and upset the highly regarded Improbable in the first division of the Rebel Stakes last week. So the race is looking better in retrospect. I just want an alternative to War Will at a short price, and that alternative for me in Louisiana Derby is Sueno. The Louisiana Derby is race 13 on the Fairgrounds card. Race 10 is the New Orleans Handicap. And the two horses who I think are going to be the first two favorites in this race are Copper Bullet and Silver Dust. I fear Silver Dust in this race. He's in career form. His win in the Mine Shaft, the local stepping stone to this race, was the best race he's ever run. Copper Bullet, on the other hand, I think is vulnerable in here. To my way of thinking, Copper Bullet had absolutely no business losing the Razorback Handicap last time out. He set a perfect trip off a speed duel that involved Cold Front, and Cold Front really had to go fast early in order to get over from the 14 post. And Copper Bullet had dead aim on Cold Front through the length of the stretch and just could not go by him. And that's a negative for me. I'm going with Mr. Buff in here. Mr. Buff is shipping in from Aqueduct. He is looking for his fifth straight. He is facing tougher, but his win last time out in the Jazzle, I thought was a tremendous performance. It was completely legitimate. It was a fast race. It got a 102 buyer speed figure. He controlled the pace in this race, and I think he could be the controlling speed in the New Orleans Handicap. And it's not like Mr. Buff is alien to facing good company, because last year, almost a year to the day, he gave a horse named Backyard Heaven everything he wanted in an allowance race at Aqueduct. And Backyard Heaven came back to win the Ali Sheba at Churchill in his next start in smashing style. He was so impressive winning that race that for a moment, Backyard Heaven looked like one of the best older horses in the country. Anyway, I'm looking for Mr. Buff to control from the outset and take the New Orleans Handicap. Let's wrap this up and move on to Sunday, to the Sunland Park Derby. And again, the first two favorites here are Mucho Gusto and Another Twist of Fate, and I have questions about both of them. Mucho Gusto, I think, is going to be a heavy favorite in here. He should be. He's 3 for 4. He's trained by Bob Baffert. He was a big winner of the Robert Lewis last time out. But the thing of it is that he beat a soft group in the Lewis, and he did it in the slop. And he's not going to catch a sloppy track this time. And his fast track races last year were only okay. They weren't great. So at a short price on a different surface than the surface on which he produced his best performance, I think Mucho Gusto might be a little bit vulnerable. As for Another Twist of Fate, he's got very flashy form in his last three starts. The problem is those three big wins came on the synthetic surface up at Golden Gate, and now he's moving back to dirt. And in his only dirt start, he was beaten the length of the stretch. And granted, it was in his career debut, but we're talking about a horse who's going to be clear-cut second favorite. And so he's going to have to show me that he can run on dirt. I'm going to go with Cutting Humor in here. Now, Cutting Humor is another horse coming out of the Southwest Stakes. He checked early and had a wide trip. I don't think that was really an excuse for a spade in that race. I'm going to hope that race was an aberration. I'm hoping that Cutting Humor runs back to his race 2 starts back, which was an allowance race at Gulfstream Park, and it was a game effort on his part, finishing second to Bourbon War. And Bourbon War came off of this performance and finished a fast-closing second in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. So I think it was a pretty solid race. To my way of thinking, if Cutting Humor is able to run back to this game second to Bourbon War, he can win this race at a pretty square ticket. So that's where I'm going in Sunday's Sunland Park Derby. That's it for this week's Video Weekend Warrior. Good luck.